Our guest is Angela Liddle. She's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance, an organization based in Harrisburg, a statewide 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to protect children from abuse and neglect. Angela, so great to have you in here today.
Thank you, Bo.
Hey, I was just going over some of the statistics of abuse and neglect in Pennsylvania, and it would really shock people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the vast majority of Pennsylvanians have no idea the magnitude of child abuse.
Yeah.
Our most recent stats are from 2016. They unfortunately do not show a decrease.
Yeah.
We had 4,416 substantiated cases. We had 46 children die as a result.
That's amazing. You know, just here in Cambria County, some of the numbers here, staggering. 1 death due to abuse, 2 near fatalities, 26 substantiated reports. That's substantiated. Compare that to Blair County. I was astounded by this. 61 reports. Total cost to Pennsylvania taxpayers just in Cambria County on investigations and everything connected to that, $2.7 million. That is astounding.
It is, and there are some pretty grim figures. So what I always like to do when we have conversations like this is to point to the one kind of shining number, if there is one, and that's the 79 near fatalities.
Yeah.
So the good news about that, Bo, is that without intervention, those 79 near fatalities likely would have been deaths.
Right.
And so one of the things that we're really encouraged about is in those statistics, we had 8,000 community members. They're called permissive reporters. They don't have to report suspected child abuse, but they did. And because of that, 8,000, I'm sure they helped some of those 79 kids. And
Absolutely.
so for that, you know, we use opportunities to make new friends with folks like you, and we had for years with Ralph here, to spread the message that everyone can do something constructive and play a role in helping to keep kids safe.
So the purpose of your organization involves a lot of educating the community about these statistics, about making people aware of what's going on, right?
Yeah, the organization really is all about education. So we were founded on really the belief that parents and good, strong parenting is the best first step to preventing child abuse. We work with great agencies statewide to offer no-cost parenting education and support groups. In Cambria County, we're really blessed to work with Paula at Beginnings.
Oh, and isn't she wonderful?
Absolutely phenomenal agency. But, you know, we know that some parents, for whatever reason or myriad of reasons, will never be able to provide a safe environment for their children. And so because of that, we have to really focus on the professionals near and dear to your heart, educators, social workers, doctors, dentists, nurses, folks who come in contact with children through the course of their employment, and now with a more recent change to the law, some volunteers who really play an integral part in services to kids. So we focus strongly on educating them on what child abuse is in Pennsylvania, the forms of it, what the law says, how to identify child abuse, and then the really important part, how to make an accurate, comprehensive report to Childline and Child Protective Services.
And I just had this conversation with Paula at Beginnings only a couple weeks ago. But as a mandated reporter, I think to myself sometimes, if I have a neighbor or somebody who I think may be abused, I don't know the signs. Is there anything to help people with trying to understand, you know, how a kid may be abused?
Well, absolutely. There are lots of resources that you can get to assist with that. And so one of the things we want your listeners to know about is our great website, which is pa-fsa.org. You can get lots of key information there. But the message we really want to convey, Bo, is that people don't have to be 100% certain. You're not a professional investigator of child abuse. You don't have to be completely accurate. We tell folks, you know, if in your gut something doesn't seem right, it probably is not.
Right.
So you make the call, and that's how you do your part. And then you let the child welfare system take over and check on the safety and well-being of the child or the children in question.
Yeah, as somebody that has to report any suspected, and that's what's important here, suspected. There really doesn't have to be any kind of proof or any kind of verification that you have, but if you suspect, it's your obligation to let someone know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have to remind folks that the child welfare system is not a proactive system, it's responsive, which means it has to be alerted. It doesn't have the authority to just for no reason go out and knock on a door and check on the children who may live behind it. There needs to be a reason for them to get involved. And so we hope that comes from a variety of sources. And we hope that, more and more, and we've talked about this so much over the years, we live in communities in every part of this state where we don't know our neighbors as well as we once did,
right.
where we're
right.
less connected to people, where we have our faces in handheld electronic devices, where we're texting and not talking.
That's right.
And so a good piece of the community education to average citizens, community members is, wake up, folks, and pay attention to the kids in your midst, because sometimes you may be the only one who sees something at just the right moment that could make a difference for that child.
I just heard a great PSA, which is running on this station right now, in regarding suspected child abuse, whereas you hear this from the viewpoint of a child that's being abused. The plea saying that if you feel awkward in reporting abuse, just imagine what it's like being the one that's abused. Stuff like that is just so effective.
Absolutely. And, we tell people when you see something out in public, the grocery store, the mall on the weekend or whatever, and if it's something that really raises the hair on the back of your neck, an exchange between a parent to their child, if that happens in public, imagine what happens behind closed doors in the privacy of their own home.
Right, absolutely. We're speaking to Angela Liddle. She's the president and CEO of Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance, an organization based in Harrisburg. So obviously, Angela, getting around the state, child abuse, neglect, it's not something that's just in this region, but it can happen anywhere, correct?
It happens in every nook and cranny of Pennsylvania, in every community. It crosses all socioeconomic lines. And so one of the things that we're really encouraged about is we're trying to build really a movement. And this, of course, is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Your folks here have their blue ribbons.
Absolutely.
And we are building each and every year. We start with the Capitol in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and turn it blue for child abuse prevention. The blue ribbon is the national symbol. We adhere to that. But we want people to know that, wear your blue ribbons, be a part of the solution. And we really recognize and celebrate those folks who are champions for kids, who each and every day do the right thing. And there are many in this state. So that's a message of hope and empowerment that we hope to spread as we go out and talk with folks and our media partners. We couldn't do this without folks like you, Bo. We couldn't.
Right.
Need to spread the message that it's okay to get involved in this. It's not a fun topic. It's not something people like to talk about. But the truth is, it exists. It's not good. And we have the ability individually and collectively to change it.
I think often it's these uncomfortable conversations, that we have to have. Some people don't want to see it. Some people don't want to address this issue. But the more that we shine a spotlight on this, it could only help, correct?
Absolutely. And those 79 near fatalities, coupled with the 8,000 permissive reporters who stepped forward. And I might say, too, with that, those 8,000 permissive reporters, they had a higher substantiation rate than those required to report by law, which meant they really, in their gut, knew that what they were seeing was really not good for a child. And they took action and did something about it.
I can tell you, like my own personal experience, as a kid that grew up in the Johnstown area, going to school, getting out of college, one of my first jobs that I had professionally was working with kids through juvenile probation system and Cambria County Children Youth Services. And reading the reports of what some of these kids who were in the juvenile justice system went through was astonishing to me. And I think sometimes these eye-opening things, is what people have to hear sometime to realize that it happens in our own backyard, right?
It does. For all of the really wonderful parts of our humanity, we really have to acknowledge that there are some parts in many of us that are just really, really not good. Mm-hmm. And when you really look at it, we spend a lot of time, when you talk about hard conversations to have, we spend a lot of time in our lives with meaningless chit chat. Mm-hmm. And the things, you only need to go on Facebook or social media and see the things that are posted that you just wonder, somebody took their time to do that. And
yes.
I wonder why.
Why are we prioritizing the wrong things?
Why are we even spending time typing those words?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So if we started to use just a fraction of that time for good, and to get to know the kid that you pass on their way to the school bus, or that may be walking from the bus to the house with face down on a phone or an iPad, mm-hmm. It's amazing what you can find out, because there are truly, truly wonderful kids who come from not so pleasant situations in our world. And the ideal is to have a parent who's always the champion and the advocate and the role model. Mm-hmm. But kids don't necessarily need that. They need one adult to be that.
Right.
Doesn't always have to be mom or dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about any connection that there may be with opioid crisis that we have within this region or all through the state. Do you see any kind of connection between issues that we have with drugs and abuse and neglect?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there are many contributing factors to child abuse and stressors in a family. But I think, no one can really argue the positive correlation between substance use disorder and what's happening with, our kids in the child welfare system. There's a very positive connection between that. So we've seen for many years more and more grandparents actively involved mm-hmm. in parenting their grandchildren. And unfortunately, what's happening now, because we have so many overdose deaths, we have an estimated 82,000 grandparents who are raising an estimated 89,000 children.
Yeah.
Many of them, unfortunately, have lost their own child as a result of an overdose. Or in some cases, the adult kids are just not able to parent their own children because they're in and out of different treatment facilities or relapse, or maybe not. And so grandparents or other kin step in. The other thing I think we need to recognize is that about 60% at least of all of the active cases in our county child welfare system have some level of substance use disorder on one or both of the parents' parts. Yeah. So it's pretty horrific. And, one system impacts the other. We've not figured out a way to fix mm-hmm. Or really even effectively address the opioid crisis. The reality is we have to figure out a way to help the grandparents and the kin who are stepping into these parenting roles, because on average it's $25,000 a year to put a child in the foster care system. Right. And quite frankly, with numbers like that, our foster care system in Pennsylvania could not address an additional 89,000 children into placement.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking to Angela Liddle. She's the president and CEO of Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance, an organization which is based in Harrisburg, whose mission is to protect children from abuse and neglect. Angela, with all the traveling that you do, with all the talk shows and everything to shine light on this problem, what's it like for you to be doing what you're doing as an advocate for many kids who are just voiceless with this issue?
Well, I think one of the things that's definitely changed over the years of doing this, and I'm almost 25 years in this job, and almost,
Is that right?
yeah, and almost 30 years working in child abuse prevention.
Wow.
I think one of the things that's really encouraging is to see that it really is talked about far more today
Right.
than
yeah.
it was even 10 years ago. You know, it did my heart so good in Harrisburg to see kind of the corporate sector step up and be partners in our Blue Ribbon Champion for Safe Kids campaign. So 2nd Street in Harrisburg is known as Restaurant Row, and some business owners put up big generators and shined blue lights on their businesses and bought blue flags to put out. And,
Yeah.
you know, bridges across the Susquehanna had lights turned blue, and the Capitol was illuminated. And, you know, we need visuals of this. We planted 4,416 blue flags from the banks of the Susquehanna River to the steps of the Capitol.
Oh, that's great.
Each one
Yeah.
and a victim of child abuse.
Yeah.
That's what it represented, each
Yeah.
flag. So we need those visual reminders. And what I'm finding is that as we give people visuals, they're responding saying, hey, I want to be a part of this too. I want to be a part of, you know, learning what I can do to help keep kids safe. I want to be a part of the discussions. And so I'm really encouraged about that.
Right. Oh, I think it's great. Plus, you know, the experience that you have. I was just talking to somebody the other day that spent 30 years as a drug prevention specialist. And I thought to myself, this really takes a special person. And I know you, with all the work that you've put in this, that you come across a lot of special people that are doing a similar mission as to what you're doing too.
Yeah, there are really, really good folks. You know, I look at someone like Paula right here in Johnstown, and she has used creativity and passion, lots of her own resources, and she does not have no in her vocabulary. And so you look at someone like that and you say, well, look how many lives Paula has positively influenced.
Yeah.
And so maybe I can't ever be a Paula. Maybe I can't do as much as she does. But if I only did a fraction of that, and if we each said that, imagine how much better. You know, I have to say, Bo, somewhere along the line, very gradually, as the years have passed, the past several decades, we've lost a fair amount of civility in our communities.
No doubt.
You hear that about the road rage. You hear we can't deny the shootings in the schools, the public violence that we see. And in all of that, kids are a part of it. And not only do we not really look out for each other very much, we most certainly don't look out for the youngest, most frail and vulnerable among us.
Right.
So one of the things we hope to do as an organization with partners like you and businesses and individuals and state and county government is to just kind of join hands and say, we can't fix this all in 5 or 10 years, but incrementally, if we could bring back a little more of what we've lost, it's going to benefit our kids.
Absolutely. And that's why, you know, going back to what we were talking about earlier in our conversation, that's why it's really not asking much, that if you see something or you have any kind of suspicion of anything, it's not asking much, you know, to help alleviate this problem.
No, it's not. You know, I've been a little envious that after 9/11, the slogan became, if you see something, say something. I think that's a perfect slogan for us in child protection.
Absolutely.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And sometimes the say something is not a report to Childline, though we should make sure your listeners know that number. If you have concern about a child's safety and you believe there may be child abuse, you should call the toll-free hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, which is 1-800-932-0313. But sometimes it really is a matter of not a report to Child Protective Services, but to do something kind for a parent who's struggling.
Absolutely.
And it's hard for us to know how to do that. And that's why PFSA is so proud to administer the Front Porch Project. Great training program statewide. The folks here at Beginnings, they've been trained on it. They offer it in communities throughout Cambria County. It helps the average Joe, the community member who sees something at the mall, the grocery store, in their neighborhood, a child unattended, helps give you some ideas of what you can do to do something positive about that situation.
You're listening to the voice of Angela Liddle, the president and CEO of Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. Angela, if anybody has any questions in regard to your organization, what do you advise they do?
Well, I think the best first stop is our website, which is pa-fsa.org. If you're a member of the media, there's a section on there to post your question at info@. And we really have a toll-free number too. And believe it or not, between about the hours of 7:30 and 4:30, we have people who actually answer the phone and talk to folks who call in. Yep. Yeah, you don't get a voicemail. You actually get a live human being.
So rare these days.
So rare. So let's give you that number. It's 1-800-448-4906.
Well, Angela, I greatly appreciate what you're doing here in the state of Pennsylvania. This is a very, as I said, this can be a very uncomfortable topic, but it's something that needs to be addressed, and it's something that we need to talk about more.
Absolutely. So thanks for being a part of that conversation.